From the second chapter, we have understood that it is very dangerous for black to allow white to develop the bishop to g5, pinning the knight f6. But you can ask the same question about black. What will happen with black if he, by himself, will play bishop g4 as black in Spanish or Italian, trying to pin my knight on f3. And this game is a good example. So let's see. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, a6, bishop a4, knight f6, queen e2, bishop b5, bishop b3, e7. So this is not the best move, because black is not fighting for the center. c3, castle, d4, d6, knight b d2. So this is my favorite variation for white. I played it a lot of games, and I won many games. Also I played against Leka, Nikolic, Belyavsky, Ibragimov, and many others. So white's idea is to consolidate the center and to have a space advantage. So bishop g4. This move is not so good because after h3 it is not clear what to do with bishop g4. If the bishop will go to d7, then it will be simply a loss of time, because h3 is a useful move for white. And if black plays bishop h5 in the game, it means that the bishop is standing very bad on h5 and can be attacked by the move knight f1, knight g3, and so on. Also sometimes white can play g4 and later transfer the knight to g3 via f1 to g3. So let's see how white is reacting. So now the move d5. I have to close the center because the pawn d4 was under attack. If black still wants to play bishop g4 at some point in this position, then it is necessary to take on d4 here. And if c d4, then bishop g4 here. And after queen e3, d5, e5, knight e4, the position is not so clear. I've played a couple of games here and I have good analysis for white. But here bishop g4 is not so good. So let's return to the game. h3, bishop h5, d5, knight e5, bishop c2, c5. So, and this move is a complete mistake. The only way for black to achieve counterplay is to play c6 at some point. Now c6 is a mistake because white wins material playing before. So black should have played queen c8, preparing move c6. But then of course white advantage is not questionable, because the bishop on h5 is standing bad. The bishop should be standing on d7 to support the move c6. But this move as c5 is serious positional mistake, because the central pawn structure is stabilized and white has an open hand to develop the attack on the king side. So now he plays knight f1, queen c7, g4, bishop g6, knight g3, c4, and now h4, with the king still being in the center, and there is no any chance for black to create counterplay. So black position is practically lost. h5, knight h2. So after taking on g4, white takes g4, then h5, h6 is coming. So black position is collapsing. So in the game black decided to sacrifice the material, but it is not enough. I simply take the pawn, and now I move my knight to g5 to eliminate this bishop on h7. Rook a b8, knight g5, b4. Black manages to get small amount of counterplay, but of course this is not enough to save the game. So exchange on h7 and now bishop d2. So planning to take on c3 with the bishop. b3, bishop d1, rook d2, knight b3, bishop e3, a5. So I've consolidated the position, so I'm now going further with my attack. Bishop f8, rook g1, knight c5. So black is defending not so bad considering the difficulty of his position. So he is finding some resources. Bishop c2, knight d3, and now he forces the exchange of the queens. But the ending is an easy win for white because he has an extra pawn, and the pawn a5 is also weak. So the rest of the game was just the matter of technique. So I will just go through this game very quickly. The king is coming to the center, exchanged, king is centralized, bishop g5, because if I allow the exchange of the bishops, then I must take with the pawn on h4, because otherwise my h would become weak. So bishop d8, rook b7, rook g2, and now the exchanges, and as very often happens in the Spanish, so the weakness of the d6 pawn becomes decisive. So I'm going to win this pawn, and everything else is not so relevant, because the passed pawn decides. So black resigned.